Coming up on this episode of The Coder's Couch.
Can you repeat the question?
We're probably going to have to pick it up. 22 questions and we're already 25 minutes in.
That's what cutting and editing is for.
I mean, this is going to end up being like 3 or 4 parts anyway. Okay.
Woohoo! Pause. I need to breathe. I'm getting riled up. Cut. Start over.
Welcome back to the Coder's Couch podcast. Thank you, everybody, for listening, for tuning in. And as you could probably tell, we've got our guest, our favorite guest, back on.
It's me, the wife.
Yeah, it's our favorite guest, my favorite guest. Wink. Yeah, we're back. And we've got some very exciting, I think this is a very exciting time. Exciting to me. You excited?
I'm so excited for this.
Yes, there we go. That is the enthusiasm I'm looking for. Thank you, babe. So this episode, I was given a list of questions by a classmate of mine about engagement. And so she wanted to hear our thoughts on engagement. And so neither one of us have looked at these questions yet. So we're going to get them, gonna get them at the same time you do, listener. All right, question number 1. You ready?
I think so.
Thank you, Micaiah, for these questions. I'll give her some credit. So,
Does she want you to give her credit?
that's a good question. How long was your engagement, and do you feel like that time was ideal for you both?
Which one?
That is actually a good question. Yeah, our first one was what?
Our first engagement.
First engagement was 7 months, and then we called it off. But it would have been a year and a month had we gone through with the wedding, because that would have been September. So from August to the following September would have been the first engagement.
Yep.
And that felt long.
Yep.
I think that would have been long, but we were in college. And so we were just trying to make it work reasonably with, you wanted a fall wedding, actually, was I think just the primary reason.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, we can't get married next month. So how about a year and a month?
Yep.
Okay. So that felt long, but we were doing things your way.
Of course. Why wouldn't we?
You put a lot more dreaming into your wedding day than I had to that point. And so we were going to do things the way you wanted them.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then our second time being engaged wasn't that much longer than the first. I think we were together for 8 months, February to October. And that was a good time frame, I thought. We got everything done that we needed to get done, and it didn't feel rushed or like we didn't have enough time to get stuff finalized.
So yeah, it felt pretty good.
I think the sweet spot is like 6 to 8 months, honestly.
I totally would have done it same day if you would have let me.
I know.
One of those like,
but I wanted a little party.
all right, we're gonna get engaged, and then surprise, the pastor's also here, or we go to the courthouse. That's also probably important to mention. So we had said, or at least I think you had said, that maybe what would have been better would have been to get married beforehand and then just have a reception thing, or at least been married and kind of had the ceremony for show.
Yeah.
And why is that? I know you had.
I think for me it would have just taken off like all the extra stress that came with the ceremony. I mean, the reception was fine. It was primarily the ceremony that was very high stress of like, everything has to be in place. Everybody needs to know what they're doing. I have to look my best. And I also have to remember to like say the right things and whatnot. And I think if we had gotten married beforehand and then had it just been like, kind of like a party, we could have still done a little bit of a ceremony just for, I don't know, sharing vows or something in front of people. But I think it would have taken off the stress of everything needs to be done perfectly and everything needs to be done right because, you know, you only get married once. Well,
you would have had to fake all the tears.
True. I was not expecting to cry as much as I did. And so that actually probably would have been way better, as I probably actually wouldn't have cried, which I would have preferred, but hey, it's fine. The days pass.
I think I'll forever remember I remember my friend Colin, when he got married, he said, as soon as you see your bride to be walking down the aisle, like just boom, you lose it. And so I had that in my head as you and your dad were walking up the aisle, and then I started crying, and then you were just mouthing, stop it, stop it, stop crying.
Which is so funny because I wanted you to cry. I just was not expecting me to start crying when I saw you start crying.
Yeah. Question 2. I've heard some Christian influencers say that engagements shouldn't be too long. What's your take on that? I think we kind of just said that. You said the sweet spot was 6 to 8 months. I think if we could have done a bit more to save up the money ahead of time and have a shorter engagement, then that would have been amazing.
Totally. Yeah.
I mean, of course, there is just a time frame to some of that planning because it's a very big day and a very big event. But yeah, whatever would keep that pretty short. And I think it's just like marriage is so fun. And I think all of the lead up, like from when you get engaged to when you get married, if you shorten that time period, you'll just be glad you did. I don't know how to explain it, but just thinking like on this side of marriage, if we had had a shorter engagement period, I feel like that just would have been better. Plus that just shortens the amount of time from engagement to marriage to like getting to this side of marriage and enjoying all the benefits thereof, because marriage is awesome. And so if you can have a shorter engagement, I would encourage you to do so. That's my thought.
Yeah.
In theory, you're only getting engaged when you know you're
like you're ready.
You want to get married. I don't even want to use the term ready to get married because that's just
true. Yeah. Like
there are so many people asking like, how do you know you're ready to get married?
No, yeah, you're right.
There are no good answers to that, I don't think. And I guess our answer lately has been, if you know you can choose this person day after day after day of like, no matter what, through all the highs and lows, I can still choose you, then you're ready. And I think that's when you're ready to get engaged. And ideally, the same level of commitment to take the step from dating to engaged is what's going to get you, like, that's why you get engaged, so that you get married. Like, you already want to get married, so just get married.
Yeah.
But of course, don't do it rashly, or like, don't necessarily be like, well, we might as well just get married, so like, we're just going to go down to the courthouse. Like, if you want a party, have a party, and then take the time that you need. But I think a shorter engagement would be preferable. You would probably be grateful you did. I think I would have, had we had a shorter engagement.
I think for Christian influencers specifically, it probably comes from a place of knowing that the longer you're engaged, the more likely you are to, or at least this is how I've experienced it, the longer somebody is engaged, the more likely they are to move in with each other and then start doing all the marriage things.
Like playing house.
Yeah.
You mean?
But not actually being married, and then they just keep drawing out the engagement. And so I think just from like a Christian perspective, it's like, I think it kind of goes back a little bit to what you were saying, like once you get married or once you get engaged.
If you think I want to get married, there's a significant level of commitment there that goes from dating to engaged. And the only reason you're getting engaged is because you want to be married.
Yeah. Well, and I think further than that, I think there's the desire to want to be in the same place with your spouse and get to actually step into that. And I think that's where some of the Christian influencers come from, is if you draw out this engagement, that's longer that you go without actually stepping into this new zone, like with your husband or your wife. There's also way more room for like temptation and to just move in with each other and go with it. Whereas a shorter engagement I feel like it gives you just the perfect amount of time to focus on, here's what we need to get done for the wedding. And then that brings you up to the wedding. There's no extra space of, okay, here's what we need to do for the wedding. Now that it's all done, we still have 6 more months now until the wedding. What do we do? And that just kind of, having a shorter engagement kind of just cuts that out. I feel like personally, I can't speak for all Christian influencers. I've only listened to a few influencers who are Christian, but...
Well, you're a Christian on a podcast. Does this now make you a Christian influencer?
I don't know that I would label myself that.
You're influencing Micaiah right now.
That is a high.
The audience.
That's a
Influencer.
high regard. Yeah. I don't know. I can't speak for all Christian influencers. I feel like I can just speak for myself that having a shorter engagement allows you to step into marriage sooner, and it cuts off sort of that. I don't know. I don't know how. I don't like this question. I don't.
The thing I was going to add, the maybe slightly harsher part of me, or more direct, more blunt part, is going to say, what is the point of a long engagement?
Yes.
Because if you're getting engaged, that should mean I want to marry you. And so the time of dating has come to an end, like,
Yes.
period.
Yes.
Now, when you get married, you're starting a new life. Like, the life we had together as a dating couple is over. We're going to start building something new as one flesh, as a married couple. And the time in between the period at the end of dating and your marriage date, aka engagement, is just kind of some weird limbo that I don't even know. Is there really a great purpose for that? Like, it's
Right.
you get to celebrate with friends and I guess build excitement. It's more official, maybe to friends and family members. It's like, oh, they are really committed, and now we get to look forward to this wedding almost with the same excitement as if it's already happened. And we can say, you guys have like made it. You've made this lifelong commitment. So I don't think there's a really good reason for a long engagement.
Yeah, I think I would agree. Unless it was something like, and even then I kind of go back on this. So with our first engagement, we got engaged in August, and it would have been a year and a month before we got to the wedding, because I specifically wanted a fall wedding and we couldn't pull that off in like a month or two. We were college kids. And so a situation like that, I can understand, like, if your heart is set on, I want this sort of wedding during this specific season, whatever. But on the other side of that, I also think too, if your partner knows that, then I think there's a decision that could be made there to say, like, okay, I know that Bree wants to get married in the fall. So if I propose now in August, that means we'd have to wait a year and a month. So maybe I'll just wait until the new year or something like that. Like, what's a couple more months? You know what I'm saying? I think there's just extra thoughts that go into something like that. But I do understand, like, the occasional, this is why we have to wait a year. But
yes. Yeah, logistically, there might be some challenges. And so you would wait and have a longer engagement than you would otherwise would. But I think that would be a scenario where I'm recommending, like, get married and then have a ceremony whenever the heck you want. Because if you are trying to plan around a specific season or something, then I think you're making the day a higher priority than the marriage.
Yeah, than the marriage, for sure.
The marriage, like, lasts longer. And so that should be your focus.
Yeah.
And it's all, like, both from it's a holy, good, blessed thing, marriage is, and it's just a lot of fun. And the sooner that you enter into that, I think you'll be glad you did. I think, we again would have had a shorter engagement.
Yeah.
Number 3, how did you manage family pressures or unsolicited opinions during your wedding planning? Bree is pantomiming screaming.
Sorry, we can probably cut that.
I'm leaving it in.
Oh, yeah, that's tough. I think you have to be delicate with it, right? Because whether it's coming from your family or it's coming from the family that you're about to enter into, I think everybody has these ideas. Everybody has their picture of what they think their son or daughter's wedding should look like. But then I think you also have to weigh that with, like, what do you want your wedding to look like, right? It's not their wedding. It's your wedding. It's yours and your husband's, or yours and your wife's wedding. And I think setting boundaries on that is really important. I think there is space for loved ones' opinions. And there's also space for you to stand your ground on your vision, what you and your future wife or husband have talked about, what your hopes and dreams and goals are for the day. And I found that sometimes that, at least in our process, my vision for our wedding, not my wedding, our wedding, my vision for our wedding was very specific. Like, I just knew from the beginning what I wanted, and nobody was changing my mind about it. And it took a lot of conversations for me to get people to be on board with, okay, this is what's happening, and we just have to go with it type of thing. A lot of input is going to come to you, specifically from family members. And I had to decide what family members, both between my family and Jason's family, what family members do I trust enough to let their input influence, my decisions on certain things? And what family members can I just kind of hear them out and then brush off to the side? And I think that's something you have to figure out for yourself, of course. And Jason and I figured that out just through us talking about our day together and really aligning on what we were looking for and being on the same page. And then anything that was outside of that was almost non-negotiable unless somebody, like one of our parents or someone that we really trusted, said, hey, I really think you should look at this. So yeah, I think it can be difficult to approach that with specifically family members trying to speak in to your day. And honestly, you just have to help them recognize that it's not about them, it's about you. And hopefully they'll understand that too, that everybody can come to this common agreement, like, yes, the day is about you and your future spouse. It's not about anybody else. I think the biggest issue we ran into was our guest list. Our guest list was hundreds. It felt like hundreds of people.
It was maybe up to 212 at one point. Was that just the venue's capacity? Our
venue had a capacity, and we were about 100 people over that.
Really?
Yes.
I thought it was less.
No. Because at one point, we had over 300 people that we were wanting to, that we were inviting to the day.
That sounds
whether
right.
we wanted to or whether family members were like, they should be there.
Right. Like this your great aunt that you haven't spoken to in 10 years should be there.
Right. Or family members that I've maybe met when I was a newborn and literally never met again a day in my life. Yeah, I think that was our biggest pushback was we are going to invite the people that we know, the people that we love, and the people who know and love us. Anybody outside of that was...
If we have room, then maybe.
Yes. Yep, exactly. If we get enough declines or whatever, then we'll extend an invite to so-and-so. That just seems to be a back and forth thing, right? Because you have family members who are close with other family members that might not be close with you. Mm-hmm. And I totally get where they're like, oh, but I am best friends with your great aunt. We are so close. And it's I love that for you. I get that. But I don't know who that is. And I don't want to spend my wedding day talking to people that I don't know or that I met when I was just a baby or who don't really know anything about me, right? I want people there who I've lived life with. I've gone to holidays with, I've gone on trips with, people who have seen me grow up and seen my relationship with Jason and vice versa. And I think, there just comes a point where you have to stand your ground and really decide, here's what we want, here's what I want. And I value the opinions that are coming in, but you don't have to take every single opinion to heart and make it part of your day.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I rambled a lot on that. Very passionate about that subject.
Yeah, we had a lot of people speaking into it. And so I agree with everything that you've said. And for me, it was actually pretty simple. There were a couple filters that I was receiving advice through, and the first and the easiest was the fact that you and I were paying for everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
And so it was really easy.
Well, not everything.
What didn't we pay for?
I mean, my parents and your parents paid for some things. Like,
oh, okay.
my parents helped pay for a lot of decorations.
Okay.
And
so we paid like
stuff.
At least, you think 60%, 70%?
70 to 80.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
So we paid for a vast majority of it ourselves. And so it became really easy when we got input to say, you're not paying for it. And it's also not your wedding at all, like in general.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't get a vote.
Yeah.
When it came to things that were less important, if we had our heart set on, I think, if there was something really important about like who was officiating or like the guest list, or something like that, then if your parents are paying for it, are helping in a significant way with the wedding, then you should be willing to hear them out. Because they are paying for that. You kind of owe them that much, at least, to hear them out.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you have a very significant reason as to why your decision would go against theirs, then defer to yours, because it is your day still.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But if it's something that, like, for example, my mom asked me to wear my grandfather's cufflinks during the wedding.
Yep.
And my grandfather died in 2018. And it would have meant a lot to my grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't care what cufflinks I wore. And so this was just a really special thing for me and for my grandma.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I would have been like just wearing the rental cufflinks that came with my suit. And like, that doesn't matter at all. So that was just an addition, and I didn't have a strong opinion against it. And so of course I'm going to go with that. And so if it's a matter like your parents are paying for it and they have a vote, and then it's about something that you don't really care about, like, feel free to go with their thoughts, because probably doesn't matter. And then again, if they're paying for it, you do owe them a little bit of respect there. Those are the two filters. It was who's paying for it, and is this a big deal or not? Like, if there's some element of the ceremony, like the unity candle or a unity element, and you're paying more for the wedding, then you get what you want. You get whatever unity element you want. But if your parents are paying for it, and they think, hey, it would be good to have this thing, that's going to take a little bit more conversation there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it does come down to your decision, and then letting in the people that you like truly trust, who back your visions, they back your morals, they align with you on just like who you and your future spouse are at your core, then definitely listen to those people. But also feel free to say, it's my day, it's our day, and this is what we're going to do. And we are so grateful for your input, but we're going to go a different direction, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It can be very touchy, and it does depend on who your family is and who your friends are.
Yeah, and that's a good entrance into our next question. It seems like extended family sometimes expects their opinions to be heard, and then they get upset when things don't go their way. How do you navigate that, especially with wedding planning? So I think we kind of touched on this. I think ultimately it really goes back to how much value are we putting on the day rather than the marriage, because the day is just for all of us as loved ones to gather together and celebrate the couple getting married. And so do the loved ones, the family members and friends, care more about getting their way on the day, or being there to support you and show their love for you and support this union that's going to last longer than just the day, than 10, to 12 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
It is good, like you said on the last question, it's really good to be gentle and say, thank you for your opinion. And I love that you want to speak into this, but I'm sorry, we're going to go in a different direction. That's okay. And just try to be, kind and gentle with your response on that. Do you have more thoughts? You tell them, you're just lucky you're invited.
Well, and I think for me and for our engagement personally, like I had extended family members who wanted to help out, and I was so grateful for that. Like, yes, please, if you want, like my aunt, she helped make my bouquet. Well, she made my bouquet. And I was so grateful for that because I was trying to make it by myself and I had no idea what I was doing. And she's so good with floral arrangements. But then you have I think there's a difference too between, do they just want to help out with the day? Or are they trying to tell you, hey, this is how your day should go? If they just want to help out, by all means, the more the merrier, right? But if they're trying to speak into it, I do think it depends. Are they a family member who you trust? Are they a family member that has supported you in the past? Are they a family member who aren't just giving their opinion because they want to give their opinion? Or are they giving it because they have your best interest at heart? Like, there's just things to evaluate there, right? Everybody's families are different. I know how we handled it with our extended family members. For me personally, it came down to, who do I like hold close to my heart? Specifically, extended family members. Who do I hold dear to my heart? Who do I know will be there to support me, whether I agree with them or disagree with them? And who genuinely like has my best interest at heart, rather than just wanting to put their input in just to put their input in, or just because they are very strong-willed and want things to go their own way, even though they've never been interested in my life until this point. And so I think just thinking about that. Honestly, I have some extended family members who I would consider my inner circle of family. Like, I wouldn't consider them extended. And so I think you think about that too. Like, do they make your inner circle? Do they make your core family? And for me, that had some weight to it as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Our next question ties into that. What strategies or advice do you have for setting boundaries during the wedding planning process, especially with family? You just give it to them. Just tell them no. No is a complete sentence.
It is. It is a complete sentence, yeah.
Do you want to go first on this one? Or?
Setting boundaries with family is hard.
It's very tough.
I think I learned a lot about myself through the engagement process because I had to set boundaries. I'm not, or I didn't used to be, the type that was super firm. I feel like most of my life, someone could tell me like, hey, you should do this. And if they were considered quote unquote family, I would be like, okay, yeah, you're so right. I should. And I think the engagement process, like just that time as we were planning for the wedding, there were some things that I really had to wrestle with, and some things that, like decisions that were super easy for me. Setting boundaries, I found, was easier with my family and harder with your family, because there was this fear of, okay, if I set this boundary, like, are they still going to like me? Are they still going to want me to be part of their family? Whereas, like, I kind of had a good idea, like, with my family. If you know my family, which those of you listening probably don't, but I feel like my family, you can set a boundary and they're still going to be like, okay, you set that boundary. I understand it. And I'm still going to show up to support you. It felt easier because I would say I've experienced, like, not setting strong boundaries, but I've set boundaries before and was like still loved and welcomed and invited to be part of the family. But it just terrified me when it was setting boundaries for your family and like putting my foot down. I didn't want to come across as, oh gosh, Jason, are you sure you want to marry this woman who is so strong-willed and so set in her ways that she can't listen to anybody else. Like, that was just a fear that was going through my mind. But honestly, you got to get over it, because I had so many people as we were going through engagement tell me time and time and time again that at the end of the day, when you're married, all is said and done, who are you going home with? You're going home with your husband. You're going home with your wife. And after that, you're making the decisions for your family between the two of you, and you're starting a new chapter. You're letting go of the family that you were part of, and you're stepping into a new one. And I think that family, that relationship, that conversation has far more weight than what all these other families around you are trying to say and speak into. And so you do almost have to say, like, I love you, I care about you, but I'm starting a family. And this is what we think, me and my husband. And everything outside of that, right, kind of goes back to what we already talked about. You can take it. If it's somebody who's very trusted and dear to your heart, you can take that input and that advice, or you can set that boundary and say, I would like you to only speak into things like this, or I appreciate your opinions, but this, or like, I would love you to be part of the wedding day, but not part of the process of planning the wedding day. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think if you can start setting strong boundaries during the wedding planning process, that lets your family and his family know that this is how it's going to be. Like, we are going to be a new family. And so we're going to make decisions for our family.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a good precedent to set. And the way I would go about that is just as with basically anything, very gently in a caring fashion.
Yeah. So with so much love, I think.
With a lot of love.
Yep.
My mind goes to, like, if you want to have the most meaningful conversation, you got to understand kind of where their advice or their opinions are coming from. If you trust that the family members giving you advice have good intentions and they have your best interests at heart, then you get to like dive a little deeper. You can dive a little deeper with them, and you can go about asking like, hey, why do you want this to be part of my wedding day? Or like, why is this significant to you? What significance does this hold to you? And they'll be able to articulate that, and then you can weigh that, because it's whatever's underneath their opinion that needs to be heard. If they have really good intentions, if they love you and care for you and want what's best for you. And that's the part that is probably worth paying attention to. And if you think that they just want their opinion to be heard, they just want to contribute for contributing's sake, or they just like being maybe a little controlling, then you can you brush them off and try to deal with them very gently and kindly. But you don't, again, who are you going home with? Like, they don't really get a vote when it's not their day.
Yeah, and I would say set those boundaries early, as early as you can, because I think that will just make the process of planning the wedding and figuring everything out so much easier. I felt like I was having to like set boundaries all the way up until the wedding day, and it just like clustered my mind. Like, it had me frustrated at times, and it made the process overall feel just more hectic than I think it would have been otherwise if I had set those boundaries early. Also, learning how to set boundaries early will help you significantly when you're actually married, because you don't just get married and then the input and the opinions stop. Like, they become more. I feel like we experienced at the beginning of our relationship, like, families are still trying to speak in. And if you can set those boundaries early and be strong in them, but still come from a loving and caring place, then I think that just makes stepping into your marriage so much easier too.
Yeah. I'm the kind of person who's going to, if I get an opinion from, this has not happened, but hypothetically, if I get an opinion from my parents that I don't like and that's not valuable to our family in the best interests of our family, I'm going to then like take them, like hold them by the shoulders and say, I love you. And also shut up, because it's not your family. It's not your family.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm your son, but first and foremost, I'm my wife's husband.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's going to come before this.
Yep.
I have become very strong on boundaries.
Yep.
All right. We are going to need to pick this up.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll yap this.
Little shorter answers.
Okay. I'll try to process as I go.
Perfect.
Next time on the Coder's Couch.
If they didn't meet before the wedding, there was going to be tension.
$36,000.
36, is that what you said? 36,000? I would never.
That's like 2 new cars if you pick the right cars. I got to shoot a freaking machine gun at the shooting range.